A concrete pillar exploded beside Luca's head as the crowbar swung down from the sixth attacker, striking the exact spot where his skull had been less than a heartbeat before. Blood seeped from his split lip. His expensive black cashmere coat was torn open at the shoulder, and the dragon crest family tattoo on his chest showed through the shredded fabric. 6 masked men had driven him into a dead corner in the rain-flooded garage beneath La Stella restaurant, and even the boss of the Moretti family knew the math of survival was turning against him. His 2 bodyguards lay motionless on the concrete floor, their blood spreading into a dark pool under the flicker of buzzing neon lights. Then, she appeared. Scarlett Reyes stepped through the emergency exit, still wearing the bartender's white shirt and a black apron, her dark brown hair spilling loose from what had been a neat ponytail. 27 years old, olive-skinned, beautiful, and completely out of place in a world of violence and betrayal. The attackers did not even bother to glance at her, just an unlucky civilian who had wandered into the wrong place at the wrong time. They had no idea what they were looking at. "Go back inside," Luca ordered through clenched teeth as he dodged another swing. Scarlett did not move. Her amber eyes swept the scene with military precision. "Escape route. Weapons. Positions. They have you trapped in a cage," she said quietly. "Someone inside your circle sold you out." One of the men gave a harsh little laugh and turned toward her with casual menace. "The bartender thinks she is part of this." That was when everything changed. The first attacker lunged at her, thinking she would be easy prey. Scarlett moved like water, fluid, controlled, ruthless. She redirected his momentum, twisted his wrist with surgical precision, and slammed him into the concrete wall. His weapon clattered across the oil-slick garage floor. The whole garage fell silent, leaving only the echo of the impact. The remaining 5 men stood frozen, staring at the woman in a bartender's apron. They had no idea what they were looking at. Welcome to us. Tonight's story will make your heart tremble. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, hit like, and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the intense love stories every week. 2 seconds of silence stretched out like an entire century. The 5 remaining assassins stared at their partner lying motionless at the feet of the woman in an apron, and the contempt in their eyes slowly shifted into something close to fear. The leader, a huge man in a black mask with eyes as cold as steel, let out a roar and barked an order. "Kill that girl first." 3 of them charged Scarlett at the same time, while the other 2 kept pressing Luca. Scarlett had no weapon, no armor, only 14 months of trying to forget what she had once been trained to do. But muscle has a memory of its own. The first one swung his club. She slid to the side, used his momentum to pull him off balance, then smashed his head into a concrete pillar. The second pulled a knife. She stepped back at the exact moment the blade tore through the air in front of her face, then pivoted and drove a kick into his knee. The crack of bone rang out, and he went down screaming. The third was more careful, keeping his distance, his eyes measuring her as if he were looking at a dangerous animal. On the other side of the garage, Luca was fighting 2 attackers. Even wounded and exhausted, the Mafia boss still moved with the precision of someone raised around violence from childhood. He blocked a punch, answered with an elbow to the man's face, then turned and slipped away from a stab coming from behind. But he was slowing down, blood from the wound on his lip dripping onto the concrete. "Who are you?" Luca shouted over his shoulder as he slammed one assassin into the wall. "The one who will keep you alive long enough to answer my question." Scarlett shot back, dodging a punch and then driving a broken bottle she had grabbed from the trash into the third man's thigh. He screamed and collapsed, clutching his leg. 4 men were down. Only 2 left. But the leader did not panic. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket, aiming not at Luca, but straight at Scarlett. "You should have minded your own business, sweetheart." His finger tightened on the trigger. Everything happened in an instant. Scarlett saw the dark mouth of the barrel, saw the finger on the trigger, saw death racing toward her at a speed of 900 feet per second. She could not dodge in time, could not run. Then a dark shape cut across her vision. Luca threw himself between them, his body shielding her at the exact moment the gunshot exploded. The bullet tore through his left shoulder, blood spraying across Scarlett's white shirt like deep red petals. He twisted from the impact, staggered but stayed on his feet, his gray eyes on her with something she could not name. A siren wailed in the distance. The leader glanced at his watch, then signaled the last man. "Fall back." They vanished into the darkness as fast as they had appeared. But before he disappeared completely, the leader turned and looked at Luca, sagging into Scarlett's arms. "This is only the beginning. Moretti, your family will fall." Then he was gone. Scarlett eased Luca down, her hands trying to press against the wound, pouring blood. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You do not even know who I am." Luca looked at her, his face pale from blood loss but his eyes still sharp. I do not know, he whispered. Maybe I am too tired of watching other people die because of me. Footsteps thundered from the stairwell. 4 men appeared, one of them in front, his face hard and controlled with sharp East Asian features. Marco Chen, Luca Moretti's right hand, a former Navy SEAL, the most loyal man in the family. And he was drawing his gun, aiming it straight at Scarlett. Step away from my boss. Right now, Luca tried to speak. Stand down, Marco. She saved my life. But Marco did not lower the gun. His eyes swept the scene, the unconscious assassins, the scattered weapons, and the woman in a bartender's apron with blood on her hands. Who are you? Marco asked, his voice cold as ice. And for the first time in 14 months, Scarlett did not have a simple answer. The hospital's cold white lights made Scarlett narrow her eyes as she woke. She could not remember when she had passed out. Maybe when the Moretti family's private ambulance arrived and someone slipped a sedative into her arm. Now she was sitting in a luxurious room unlike any hospital she had ever seen, with a leather sofa, paintings on the walls, and 2 massive guards posted at the door. Her white shirt still carried Luca's blood, dried stiff and dark across her chest, like a reminder of what had happened. The door opened, and Marco Chen walked in, his face hard as stone. He threw a thick file onto the table in front of Scarlett, then sat in the chair across from her, watching her in silence for 10 seconds. A basic interrogation tactic she knew far too well. Scarlett Maria Reyes. Marco finally spoke, opening the file. Born in El Paso, Texas, 27 years old. He turned a page, his eyes never leaving her. Top of your class at the DEA Academy, Quantico. Specialized in undercover operations, cartel infiltration. Another page turned, and a photograph appeared of Scarlett in her DEA uniform, a few years younger, her eyes not yet carrying the darkness they held now. Operation Desperado, Marco read on, his voice like a sentence being handed down. El Paso, 3 agents killed, target disappeared. And you, he looked straight into Scarlett's eyes, led them into an ambush. I was the one who was betrayed, Scarlett replied, her voice cold. That is not what the report says, Marco countered. The report lies, people lie. I do not. Marco folded his arms, skeptical. Agent Torres, Agent Kim, Agent Vasquez, all dead. I know their names, Scarlett said, her voice trembling despite herself. I dream about them every night. Torres died in my arms. He was 52, with a daughter the same age as my sister. He told me to run. I did not listen. I stayed and watched them die one by one. So you did not set them up? There was a mole, inside the agency. I tried to tell my superiors, but they did not believe me. They blamed me, forced me to resign so the DEA would not face a scandal. No pension, no support, just a ruined name and 3 friends who are dead. Marco turned a few more pages, and Scarlett knew what was coming. Your father, Miguel Reyes, police, killed by a Mexican cartel when you were 16. Your mother, Isabella Reyes, suicide 2 years later. Your sister, Sofia Reyes, 22, severe psychological trauma, selective mutism since witnessing your mother's suicide. Currently living with you? With every line Marco read, Scarlett's jaw clenched tighter. She felt as if she were being stripped bare, layer by layer, every secret, every scar. You have every reason to hate criminals, Marco concluded. So why save one? I did not save a criminal. Scarlett rose to her feet, facing him. I saved a man who was about to die. There is a difference. In my world, Marco said, there is not. The door opening cut through the confrontation. Luca Moretti stood there, his shoulder wrapped in white bandages, his face pale, but his gray eyes still sharp as a blade. You should be resting, Marco said. Get out, Luca ordered, his voice not loud, yet carrying absolute authority. Sir, she is former DEA. We cannot trust. I said get out. Right now. Marco gave Scarlett one last look, warning written in his stare, then stepped out and shut the door behind him. The room sank into silence. Luca Moretti stood in front of her, wounded, dangerous, and looking at her as if she were a puzzle he refused to leave unsolved. Former DEA, Luca said quietly. Interesting. Now tell me, Agent Reyes, which side are you really on? Scarlett held Luca Moretti's gray eyes without flinching, the eyes of the man who had taken a bullet for her, and she wondered if this was the most intricate trap she had ever stepped into. I am not on anyone's side, she answered. The DEA threw me out like trash. I am just a bartender now. Luca moved closer, each step carrying the pain he was trying to hide. Bartenders do not fight like that. Bartenders do not read an attack like a tactical briefing. Bartenders do not have the eyes of someone who is killed. Scarlett did not back away. Then what do you want from me? The truth. Only that. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the steady, distant pulse of a heart monitor somewhere in the hospital. Then Scarlett exhaled, as if she had just decided to wager everything on a single card. The DEA blamed me for El Paso, she began. There was a mole on the team, but they needed a scapegoat. I was forced to resign so the agency would not face a scandal. No pension, no severance. Just a ruined name and 3 dead friends who haunt me every night. I came to Chicago to start over. La Stella was just a job. And tonight? Luca asked. Tonight I saw a man about to die. Old habits are hard to kill. Luca was silent for a long time, his gray eyes weighing every word as if it might be counterfeit. Then he went to the window and looked out at the Chicago night. And when he spoke, his voice carried something Scarlett had not expected. Weariness, loneliness, and an old pain that never truly closed. We are more alike than you think, Scarlett Reyes. We were both betrayed by people we trusted. Scarlett stayed quiet, waiting. And Luca began to tell his story. My father called me that afternoon. He said he had something he wanted to tell me, something about the future of this family. I was stuck in traffic. I arrived 20 minutes late. He stopped, his jaw tightening. When I got there, he was cold, sitting in his office, a glass of wine in his hand. The doctor said it was a heart attack. I knew it was not. Scarlett saw his shoulder tense, and she understood this was not simply a story. It was a wound still seeping after 3 years. The last thing he said to me on the phone was, "You make me proud, Luca. You will change everything." Luca turned back to her, and in his gray eyes the exhaustion showed, the kind his mafia boss mask usually kept hidden. I have spent 3 years trying to understand what he meant, and 3 years failing. In that moment, Scarlett no longer saw the boss of the Moretti family. She saw a son trying to carry out a father's last wish, a man carrying the weight of the dead, just like her. "Someone in your family killed your father," Scarlett said softly, not a question but a statement. Luca nodded. "And tonight they tried to kill me. I need to find the traitor before he finishes the job." He stepped closer, close enough for her to smell blood and antiseptic, close enough for her to see the old scars along his neck. "Work for me, not as a bartender, as someone I can trust." "I do not work for the Mafia," Scarlett said immediately. "You will work for me," Luca replied, his voice steady, unshaken. "A man trying to change everything. I will pay you 10 times a bartender's wages, enough to cover the best therapy for Sophia." Scarlett froze. It felt like someone had driven a fist straight into her chest. "You know about Sophia?" "I know everything about the people who work in my restaurant," Luca said. "A background check on every employee. Sophia Reyes, 22 years old, severe PTSD, selective mutism since witnessing her mother's suicide. The therapy she needs costs $50,000. You make $3,000 a month. It would take years. You do not have the right." "I have every right. This is my world. Knowledge is survival." Luca held out his hand. An offer, a deal, a trap, or an opportunity. Scarlett could not tell anymore. 6 months. Help me find the traitor. I will pay the full cost of Sophia's treatment. Scarlett looked at his hand, then into his unblinking gray eyes. "And if I refuse?" "Then you walk out that door. No threats, no consequences, just a missed opportunity." She thought of Sophia, the nights her sister cried in silence, the nightmares that never ended, the money in the account that was never enough. Then she thought of El Paso, 3 people dead because of her. Maybe this time she could save someone. 6 months, Scarlett said. "Not 1 day more." Luca nodded. "Deal." Their hands met, an agreement sealed with blood and desperation. Scarlett's phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. "Sis, someone is watching our apartment. I am scared." Scarlett's heart pounded. She looked up, met Luca's eyes, and she knew. The game had begun. "I need to go now," Scarlett said, her voice trembling as she read Sophia's message again. Luca did not ask for more. "Let's go." He ordered Marco to get the car ready, and within minutes, the armored Mercedes was tearing through the Chicago night at a dizzying speed. Scarlett sat in the back seat, her heart pounding like it might burst, reading her sister's message over and over. Sophia almost never texted. The girl did not speak, did not communicate, living inside her own private silence since the day she witnessed their mother's suicide. If Sophia was afraid enough to send a message, then it was worse than Scarlett had imagined. The apartment she rented was on the 4th floor of an aging building on the south side of the city. When the elevator doors slid open, Scarlett ran ahead, Luca and Marco close behind. Her heart sank when she saw her apartment door. It was ajar. "No," Scarlett whispered. She shoved it open, and the sight inside turned her blood to ice. A chair overturned, a vase shattered across the floor, the curtains torn to ribbons, signs of a struggle, or at least a frantic search. "Sophia!" Scarlett screamed, sprinting through the living room into the bedroom. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. "No, no, no." She spun in place, terror squeezing her chest until she could barely breathe. Then she heard it. A small sound. From the closet in the bedroom. Scarlett ran to it, yanked the door open, and her heart broke when she saw her sister. Sophia was curled into the corner of the closet, knees pressed tight to her chest, her whole body shaking like a leaf in a storm. Her eyes were wide, full of horror, but when she recognized Scarlett, a sob escaped her throat. "I'm here." Scarlett wrapped her arms around her sister, feeling Sophia's thin body tremble against her. "You're safe now. I'm here. You're safe." Sophia did not speak. She never did, but her fingers clutched Scarlett's shirt as if it were the only lifeline left in the world. Luca stepped into the room, his gray eyes sweeping the wreckage, then stopping on the table near the window. "Scarlett," he called, his voice tight. "You need to see this." Still holding Sophia, Scarlett rose and moved to where Luca pointed. On the table lay a black rose, its petals cold as a corpse, and a white card. She picked up the card, and the handwritten words made her feel like she might vomit. "The Moretti family has something of ours. Now we have something of theirs." No signature, but Luca did not need one to know where it came from. "Russo," he said, his voice like ice. "Victor Russo, head of the Russo family, our biggest enemy." Scarlett stared at him, not understanding. "But I have nothing to do with your family." Luca shook his head, his face dark. "They did not take Sophia to threaten me. They took Sophia to threaten you. Someone told them about you, about what you did tonight." Scarlett felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. The mole did not only want Luca dead, they were watching everything. And now Sophia had become a target. "It is not safe here," Luca said. "Both of you need to come with me. My family's estate is the only place safe enough." Scarlett wanted to refuse. She wanted to say she could protect her sister herself, that she did not need help from the Mafia. But when she looked down at Sophia, looked into her sister's terrified eyes, she knew she had no choice left. "We're going with him," Scarlett told Sophia, her voice gentle but firm. Sophia's eyes widened, and Scarlett braced for resistance, for panic. But for the first time in months, her sister nodded. Into the lion's den, they would go. The armored Mercedes glided along Chicago's empty roads at 5 a.m, when the city was still drowned in darkness and fog. Sophia had fallen asleep against Scarlett's shoulder, the steady rhythm of her breathing the only sound breaking the tense silence inside the car. They passed 3 security checkpoints before reaching the main gate of the Moretti estate, each one staffed by armed guards who inspected them thoroughly before letting the vehicle through. When the final iron gate swung open, Scarlett could not help holding her breath at the sight that rose before her. A 3-story villa in old Italian architecture stood imposing in the middle of sprawling grounds, marble columns, graceful arches, and a fountain at the center of the courtyard. Guards patrolled like ghosts in the early mist, and Scarlett counted at least 12 men within her line of sight alone. This was not a home. This was a fortress. An older woman waited at the front door as they stepped out of the car. She was about 62. Silver hair pinned into an elegant bun, a black silk wrap draped over her shoulders, and eyes sharp as a razor sweeping over Scarlett from head to toe. "This is the woman who saved my son," she said. Not a question, but a statement. "Mother, this is Scarlett Reyes," Luca introduced. "And her sister, Sophia. They will be staying here for a while." Donna Maria, Luca Moretti's mother, moved close enough for Scarlett to catch the scent of expensive perfume. She looked straight into Scarlett's eyes, and Scarlett felt as if every thought in her head were being read aloud. "Beautiful. Dangerous. Those eyes," she said slowly. "You have seen death." "More than I ever wanted to, ma'am," Scarlett answered, not looking away. Donna Maria nodded, something almost like respect passing through her gaze. "Good. I do not trust women who have never suffered. They do not understand sacrifice." Then her eyes shifted to Sophia, and something strange happened. The chill on Donna Maria's face melted, replaced by a softness Scarlett had not expected. "And this must be Sophia," she said gently, as if speaking to a frightened bird. "She looks exhausted. Come, let me take you to see the flower garden. Mornings are beautiful here." Sophia looked at Scarlett, and when Scarlett nodded, her sister slowly followed Donna Maria, leaving Scarlett alone with Luca in the grand foyer. But they were not alone for long. Footsteps sounded on the staircase, and a young man came down. 32, handsome with a charming smile that could have made any woman falter, blue eyes like Luca's but warmer, kinder. "Brother, I heard about the attack. Are you all right?" The man hugged Luca, the worry on his face seeming sincere. "I'm fine, Dante. Thanks to her." Luca gestured toward Scarlett. Dante Moretti, Luca's younger brother, turned to her with a bright smile. "So you're the famous bartender. The whole family's been talking about you." Dante held out his hand, and Scarlett noticed his hand was warm, his grip firm but not threatening. "Thank you for saving my brother," Dante said, his gaze earnest. "I owe you everything." "I was just there," Scarlett replied. Dante laughed. "Then that's the luckiest coincidence in Moretti family history. Let me show you around. My brother needs rest, and you definitely need to know where you are." Luca nodded his agreement, and Scarlett found herself being guided down long hallways lined with old paintings, through rooms as grand as palace chambers. Dante talked as they walked, telling her the history of the house, his voice pleasant, friendly, nothing about him seeming suspicious, until they stopped at one particular room, the weapons gallery, antique swords, guns from different eras, and an impressive collection of knives displayed behind glass. Dante paused, studying Scarlett with open curiosity. "Do you know how to use any of these?" "I've seen a few things," Scarlett answered, her tone neutral. Then everything happened in a blink. Dante snatched a knife from the display and threw it straight at her, the motion lightning fast, dangerous, lethal. Scarlett's DEA instincts reacted before she could think. She caught the knife, the steel blade ice cold in her palm, stopping inches from her face. Her heart hammered, but her expression did not change. "Impressive," Dante said, the smile still on his lips, but his eyes had changed, sharper, more calculating. "Most people would scream." "I'm not most people," Scarlett said coldly, setting the knife down on the table. "No, you're not." Dante watched her for another second, as if confirming something in his mind. Then the friendliness returned, his smile bright again as though nothing had happened. "My brother chose the right person." They kept walking, and Scarlett forced herself to look normal even as her pulse stayed fast. As they passed a long corridor, Dante's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something flickered in his eyes before he smiled at Scarlett. "Excuse me, I need to take this call. Feel free to explore." Dante stepped away, but not far enough. Scarlett pretended to admire a painting on the wall, but her ears locked onto the low murmur of Dante's voice. "Everything is in place. Yes, she's exactly what we expected." Scarlett's blood turned to ice. "She's exactly what we expected. Not what I expected. We." Dante ended the call and turned back, the friendly smile still intact. "Sorry for the interruption. Let me take you to your room." Scarlett nodded, smiling politely, but inside she was memorizing every detail. "She's exactly what we expected." The words echoed in Scarlett's mind as Dante kept smiling warmly and walked on. He had known about her. Before the attack in the garage. Before tonight. The question was, how and why? Scarlett woke at 6 in the morning, an old habit from her days in the DEA that never changed, even though she had tried to live like a normal person for 14 months. She checked on Sophia first, her sister still sleeping deeply in the luxurious room beside hers, her face more peaceful than it had been in months. Maybe the protective walls of the Moretti estate gave the girl a sense of safety their worn old apartment never could. Scarlett decided to walk through the garden to learn the terrain, another habit from the DEA, years she could not let go. The early mist still clung to the roses, the air fresh and strangely calm. Then she saw Donna Maria. The older woman stood in the middle of the garden, moving through slow, flowing Tai Chi forms, silver hair loose over her shoulders, her face serene as if in meditation. Even at 62, every motion carried control and hidden strength. "You are up early," Donna Maria said, without turning, as if she had eyes in the back of her head. "Old habit," Scarlett replied. "You cannot sleep either." Donna Maria turned, a faint smile on her lips. "I have never slept well since my husband died. Sleep is for people without enemies. My husband used to say that." Scarlett was about to answer when it happened. 2 gunshots cracked from the eastern fence line, followed by a guard's scream and the sound of running feet. Red alarm lights flashed across the garden, sirens tearing apart the morning's peace. Scarlett's instincts fired instantly. She shoved Donna Maria down behind the nearest stone statue, her body shielding the older woman. "Get down and do not move." 3 dark figures appeared from the eastern fence line, moving with the coordination of trained men. They avoided the cameras, stayed clear of patrol routes, as if they knew the estate's security layout exactly. Scarlett had no gun, but she had 14 months of compressed rage and survival instincts honed through 2 tours in Afghanistan and countless anti-cartel operations. She grabbed a nearby garden shovel and waited. The first man came around the corner of a tree, and she moved. The shovel slammed into his knee with a horrifying crack. He dropped screaming, and she ripped the gun from his hand before he could react. 2 shots, and the other 2 attackers went down. 1 hit in the shoulder, 1 hit in the leg. Moretti guards finally arrived, a brief firefight erupting, but Scarlett no longer cared about them. Her eyes locked on the attacker wounded in the leg, crawling toward the east wing of the estate, toward Sophia's room. No. Scarlett ran, faster than she ever had in the DEA, faster than the night she ran from El Paso. She caught him just before the doorway into the east wing, and when he turned with a knife in his hand, she fired. The bullet tore through his shoulder. He crashed down, and Scarlett pinned him, the muzzle aimed at his head. "Who sent you?" she snarled. He did not answer. Instead, a strange smile spread across his lips, and before Scarlett could react, he bit down hard on his own tongue. Poison hidden in his tooth spread within seconds, his eyes rolling back, his body convulsing, and then going still. Scarlett sank back, her heart pounding like a drum. Marco Chen ran up, his face tight with tension. "Are you all right? Where is Donna Maria?" "Safe," Scarlett said, standing. "He was heading for my sister's room." Marco looked at the corpse, then at the chaos around them. They knew exactly where to strike, right at the guard shift change, along the one route without cameras, straight toward the family living quarters. "Someone inside gave them the information," Scarlett said, not a question. Marco nodded, his face dark. Footsteps thundered, and Dante appeared, breathing hard, his face full of worry. "Mother, are you all right?" "I was on the other side of the grounds when I heard the shots." Donna Maria stepped out from behind the statue, calm in a way that felt almost unreal. "I am fine, thanks to Reyes." Dante hugged his mother, murmuring comfort, but Scarlett was thinking of something else. This morning, during the tour, Dante had said he would be in the East Wing to check the security system. The assassins attacked from the East Wing. If Dante had been there as he said, he should have been the first to see them, not the one arriving 5 minutes late. Dante arrived late. Scarlett filed it away. He said he would be in the East Wing this morning. The assassins came from the East Wing. He should have been closer, not farther. The timing felt too convenient, she thought. Convenient enough to be suspicious. After the attack, the Moretti estate sank into a tension tight as a string about to snap. Luca called an emergency meeting with the capos in the private conference room, the most powerful men in the family seated around an oak table with grim faces. Scarlett was not allowed to attend, but she could hear strained voices bleeding through the closed door. Someone had betrayed them. Someone on the inside had sold information, and that meant no one could be trusted anymore. While she waited, Scarlett went to check on Sophia, and what she saw warmed her heart in the middle of the storm. Her sister was sitting in the garden with Donna Maria, the 2 of them arranging flowers into a porcelain vase. Sophia still did not speak, but when Donna Maria told some story about roses, the girl's mouth curved. A smile. Small, fragile, but the first smile Sophia had shown in months. Scarlett had to turn away to hide the tears rising in her eyes. She was standing alone in the hallway when Luca found her. "The meeting is over?" she asked. "No conclusions," he replied, weariness plain on his handsome face. "Everyone suspects everyone. That is exactly what the traitor wants." He looked at her, his gray eyes softening. "Will you take a walk with me? I need to escape these walls for a while." They went into the rose garden behind the estate, where deep red blooms and pure white ones intertwined, forming a small maze of scent and color. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the leaves, laying golden ribbons across the stone path. If she did not know this was the home of a Mafia family, Scarlett could have believed she was walking through a fairy tale garden. "You saved my mother today," Luca said, breaking the silence. "That is the second time in 2 days you have saved someone in my family." "I did what needed to be done," Scarlett said. "No." Luca stopped and turned to her. "You did more than that. You did not have to risk your life for people you do not know, and yet you did." "Maybe I am too tired of standing by and watching other people die," Scarlett said, repeating the very words he had spoken to her in the garage the night before. Luca watched her, something flickering through his gray eyes. He stepped closer, close enough for her to catch the scent of sandalwood and antiseptic from the bandage still wrapped around his shoulder. "You are the first person in years to look at me and not see a monster," he said quietly. "Maybe I see the monster," Scarlett replied, her voice lower than she realized. Maybe I just do not care. Luca's hand rose, gently touching her cheek, his warm fingers brushing her skin and stealing Scarlett's breath. They stood there in the rose garden, the world around them seeming to stop turning. Then footsteps shattered the moment. Marco Chen appeared at the end of the path, his face tight. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his voice not sounding sorry at all. "But we have a problem." Luca stepped back, the Mafia boss mask snapping back into place. "What problem?" "The attacker's weapons. We traced the source." Marco paused, as if he did not want to continue. "They came from our armory." Scarlett's blood turned to ice. "From the Moretti armory? Who has access to that armory?" Luca asked, his voice dangerous. "Only 4 people. You, me, Dante, and the old butler." Scarlett said nothing, but she memorized every name. Later, when Luca went with Marco to deal with the problem, she slipped into the security room. She needed proof, not suspicion. The estate's camera system stored footage for 90 days. She began to search, filtering through hundreds of hours, hunting anything out of place. And she found it. A file that had been deleted but not fully overwritten. She restored it, and the image that surfaced on the screen stole her breath. Dante Moretti, shaking hands with an older man. The man's face was unclear, but on his wrist was a tattoo Scarlett recognized instantly. A coiled snake, the symbol of the Russo family. Scarlett stared at the restored image. Dante Moretti, shaking hands with a man wearing Russo's snake tattoo. Her blood went cold. The traitor was not only someone close to Luca, it was his own brother. It was 2 a.m, and Scarlett still could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Torres, Kim, Vasquez, 3 partners who had died because of her in El Paso. They stared at her with empty eyes, mouths open but no sound coming out, only blood. She jolted upright, her shirt soaked through with sweat, and decided to go downstairs instead of lying there and watching the ceiling for one more second. The Moretti estate's library was a vast room with bookshelves that climbed to the ceiling, a fireplace crackling softly, and the scent of old oak braided with paper. Scarlett did not expect anyone to be there before her. Luca was seated in an armchair by the fire, a glass of whiskey in his hand, flame light dancing over his tired face. He looked up when she entered, not surprised, as if he had known she would come. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "I've never been able to sleep," she replied, stepping in and taking the chair across from him. "Nightmares?" "Always." Luca nodded, as if he understood exactly what she meant. "I dream about my father every night. He's sitting in his office, a glass in his hand, and when I run to him, he's already cold. I try to hold his hand, but he keeps slipping away, slipping away." Scarlett watched him, seeing the pain his Mafia boss mask usually hid. "I dream about my partners," she said, her voice low. "They look at me and ask why I didn't save them, and I don't have an answer." They stood in the firelight, 2 strangers who understood each other's pain more than anyone else ever could. Luca set his whiskey down on the table and rose, stepping closer to her. Scarlett stood too, as if pulled toward him by a gravity she could not resist. She knew this was madness. She knew who he was, and who she was, and that they came from 2 worlds that should never have touched. But when Luca stood in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, every logical thought dissolved like morning mist. "I shouldn't do this," he whispered. "Do what?" "This." He kissed her, softly, testing, as if she were something precious that might shatter if he was not careful. His mouth was warm against hers, and Scarlett felt the world fall away. She slipped her arms around his neck, drew him closer, and the kiss deepened, more desperate, like 2 people drowning and clinging to each other just to stay alive. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard, forehead to forehead. "This is dangerous," Scarlett said, her voice shaking. "I know," Luca answered. "I don't care. Neither do I." They stood there a moment longer, and Scarlett knew this was the moment. If she did not speak now, she never would. The photo on her phone felt like it was burning through her pocket. "Luca, there's something I need to show you." He looked at her, his gray eyes still blurred from the kiss. Scarlett took out her phone, opened the recovered image, and handed it to him. Luca's face went rigid as he stared at the screen. Dante, his brother, shaking hands with a man bearing the Russo family snake tattoo. "What is this?" His voice was ice. "I found it in the camera system. The file was deleted, but not completely overwritten." "Luca, I think Dante..." She could not finish the sentence. "This proves nothing," Luca said, but his voice trembled. Then let me prove it. Give me 48 hours. If I'm wrong, I'll leave. But if I'm right..." She did not finish. They both knew what it would mean. The next morning, Scarlett went to Luca's office with a thick folder in her hands. She had not slept after the kiss the night before. Instead, she had spent the entire night digging deeper into the estate's systems, searching for anything that could prove or disprove her suspicion about Dante, and what she found would not let her stay silent any longer. Luca was standing by the window when she stepped in, his face drawn tight as if he had been awake all night too. "Do you have more?" he asked without turning. "Access logs for the armory," Scarlett said, setting the folder on his desk. Dante went into the armory at 2 a.m, just a few hours before the attack on the estate. And here, she flipped to the next page. A recovered deleted email. "Your movement schedule for the past week was sent to an encrypted address." Luca finally turned, gray eyes dropping to the folder, and then lifting to her. "My brother, my own blood." Her eyes did not leave him. "You're telling me Dante, who grew up with me, who cried when our father died, who held my hand at the funeral, is the one trying to kill me." "Blood doesn't stop betrayal," Scarlett said, her voice gentle but firm. "I know that better than anyone." Luca stood abruptly, went to the window, and stared down into the garden below. His shoulders were rigid, and Scarlett could see him fighting himself. "My father built this family from nothing," he said, his voice distant. "He came to America with $200 in his pocket. He always said, 'Family is everything. Protect your blood, at any cost.'" He stopped, drew a deep breath. "When my father died, Dante was the one who kept me from falling apart. He cried at the funeral, held my hand the entire service. How can that same person..." He could not finish the sentence. "People wear masks, Luca," Scarlett said, stepping closer. "Sometimes they wear them for years." Luca turned back, and what stopped Scarlett was the wet shine in his eyes. Not tears falling, but the sheen of pain held in for too long. "If Dante betrayed me," he said, his voice shaking, "then everything I believe about family is a lie. Everything my father taught me, everything I've tried to protect, is meaningless." Scarlett moved closer, close enough to touch his hand. "Or maybe it means you need to redefine what family is. Family isn't only blood. Family is the people willing to die for each other, the people who never betray each other." Luca looked at her, and something shifted in his eyes. Anger, pain, but also resolve. "Go," he said. "Find your proof. But if you're wrong..." "I know," Scarlett answered. She left Luca's office, her heart racing. She needed proof that could not be denied, and there was only one place it could be: Dante's private office. She found Marco in the security room, where he was reviewing camera footage from the attack. When she told him her plan, Marco's jaw tightened. "Do you know how dangerous that is? Dante has his own guards. If you're caught..." "I need into his private office." "Tonight," Scarlett cut in. Marco watched her for a long moment, then let out a breath. 11 at night, West Wing. I'll handle the guards. You have 10 minutes, no more." "That's enough." Marco nodded, but his eyes were still full of worry. "You know, if you're right about Dante, this will destroy Luca." "I know," Scarlett said, "but if I'm wrong, it will destroy me. I need into Dante's private office. Tonight." Marco's jaw clenched. In a few hours, she would know the truth, or she would die. At 11 o'clock at night, the Moretti estate was swallowed by darkness and silence. Scarlett moved like a ghost through the West Wing corridor, her footsteps making no sound on the marble floor. Marco had kept his word. The hallway was free of guards, and she had 10 minutes to find what she needed. Dante's private office sat at the end of the corridor, a heavy oak door with a complex lock. But Scarlett had broken into places more tightly protected than this during her time with the DEA. The lockpick set in her hands worked in near silence, and in 30 seconds the door opened with a small click. Inside, the office was black as ink. Scarlett switched on a small flashlight and swept its beam across the room. Expensive wood, antique paintings on the walls, bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. Everything radiated luxury and power, but there was something cold about it, something hollow. Nothing like Luca's office with its family photographs and his father's keepsakes. She began to search. The desk, locked. The filing cabinet, locked. The computer, password protected. Then her eyes stopped on the Italian landscape painting on the wall, slightly off compared to the others. She stepped closer, lifted the painting away, and her heart beat faster when she saw the small safe hidden behind it. She tried a few codes. Dante's birth date. No. Don Enzo's date of death. Click. The safe opened. What lay inside turned her blood to ice. A thick stack of contracts between Dante Moretti and Victor Russo, dividing Chicago territory after the leadership changed. A detailed timeline, the garage attack, the estate attack, and another one that had not happened yet, marked as the final phase. And at the bottom, a photograph of Sophia, with a handwritten note beneath it, leverage if necessary. Scarlett's hands shook as she photographed everything with her phone. He had been planning for Sophia from the very beginning. Then the lights snapped on. Scarlett spun around, and her heart seemed to stop. Dante stood in the doorway, a gun in his hand aimed straight at her. The friendly smile gone, replaced by eyes cold as ice. "I knew you were good," he said, "but I didn't think you would find those things." "Then kill me," Scarlett answered, her voice unexpectedly calm. "Finish it," Dante laughed, a cold laugh without humor. "Kill you? Why would I do that? You're far too valuable alive." He walked into the room and closed the door behind him. "You see, I've been watching you for months, Reyes. Even before La Stella." Scarlett felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "What? Your psychological profile is fascinating," Dante continued, speaking as if discussing the weather. "A former DEA agent with a hero complex, paralyzing guilt from El Paso. A younger sister who needs expensive treatment. You were built to save my brother. I simply put you in the right place." "You wanted me to save him?" Scarlett asked, unable to believe what she was hearing. "I wanted you to get close to him, make him trust you, love you." Dante tilted his head, his gaze calculating. What better way to destroy a man than through the woman he loves? Scarlett felt sick. Everything, from the beginning, the attack in the garage, her saving Luca, all of it, had been part of Dante's plan. "You will lead my brother into a trap," Dante explained. "You will be blamed for his death. A former DEA agent seduces and kills a Mafia boss. The press will love that story. I take over the family. Victor Russo becomes the partner. It's perfect." "I will never do that," Scarlett said through clenched teeth. Dante raised his phone and showed her the screen. A live video of Sophia sleeping in her room, the camera angle from a ceiling corner. "I have 4 men watching this estate. 2 more are right outside your sister's room. 1 wrong step, 1 suspicious word, and Sophia will die before you can blink. My people have been in position since the day you arrived here. You never had a chance." Scarlett stared at the screen, at Sophia sleeping peacefully, unaware that death was waiting just outside the door. She felt pinned in place, with no way out. 24 hours, Reyes," Dante said, his tone gentle, as if inviting her to tea. "Willis Tower. Bring my brother there. Watch him die. Or watch your sister die first. Choose." The door opened. 2 men dressed in black stepped inside, and one of them held a syringe that gleamed under the light. "Now sleep," Dante said, the smile returning to his lips. "You have a long day ahead." Scarlett opened her eyes, and the first sensation was pain, a hammering ache splitting her head. Morning light spilled through the bedroom window, and it took her a few seconds to realize she was lying in her own bed inside the Moretti estate. A sedative. They had sedated her. She sat up fast, her heart skittering, and the first thing she did was run to the room next door. Sophia was still asleep, her face peaceful, unaware of what had happened the night before. But when Scarlett looked out of her sister's window, her blood went cold. A figure stood in the courtyard below, staring up at Sophia's room, then turning away the moment he saw Scarlett looking down. Dante's man. She went back to her own room, forcing herself to control her quick, ragged breathing, and began to watch more closely what was unfolding around her. The gardener she had seen yesterday was trimming hedges below, but his eyes lingered on her too long before he looked away. The assistant cook she had seen in the kitchen was walking down the hallway now, pausing a fraction of a second near Scarlett's door before moving on. And there was a new guard she had never seen before, not one of Marco's men, standing at the end of the corridor like a statue. Dante had planted people everywhere. His surveillance web had wrapped itself around her and Sophia without her ever realizing it. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number, with a video attached. Scarlett opened it and nearly dropped the phone. The video showed Sophia sleeping, filmed from the ceiling corner of the bedroom, which meant a camera had been installed inside her sister's room. Dante's voice came through the video, cold and triumphant. "See, I keep my promises. For now." Scarlett sank onto the edge of the bed, feeling as if the entire world were collapsing around her. There was no way to run, no way to warn Luca without being seen. Dante had eyes everywhere, and Sophia was a hostage inside this very house. There was only one choice: play by his rules until she found a way to break the game. But she was not completely alone. There was still Marco. She needed to contact him without being detected. At breakfast, Scarlett forced herself to look normal, even though she was boiling inside. She wrote a short line on a small piece of paper, folded it, and hid it in her napkin. When she passed Marco in the hallway, she deliberately bumped into him, slipping the napkin into his hand in a single heartbeat. Laundry room, 3 in the afternoon. Alone. Marco did not react, his face still stone cold, as if nothing had happened, but Scarlett knew he understood. At 3 in the afternoon, the laundry room in the basement, the only place in the estate without cameras, according to what Marco had once told her. Scarlett got there 5 minutes early, her heart pounding like a drum. When Marco arrived and closed the door behind him, only then did she dare to breathe out. "I know about Dante," Marco said before she could speak. "I've known for 3 months." Scarlett stared at him, disbelief crashing through her. "What? Why didn't you say anything?" "No proof. Only suspicion. Dante is careful." Marco leaned against the wall, his expression tight. "I've been building a file in silence, waiting for him to make a mistake." "He just made one," Scarlett said. "He told me everything. He killed his father. He's working with Russo. And he wants me to lead Luca into a trap at Willis Tower within 24 hours. Scarlett told him everything fast, Dante's plan. Sophia used as leverage, the surveillance web everywhere. By the time she finished, Marco's face was hard as stone. "He has Sophia. He has people everywhere. If we make the wrong move, then we don't make the wrong move." Marco cut in, his eyes sharpening. "Dante thinks he's the hunter. We're going to make him the prey." For the first time in hours, Scarlett felt something like hope. Marco studied Scarlett in the dim light of the laundry room, his face more severe than she had ever seen it. "We can't tell Luca," he said. "Dante has spies watching his every step. If Luca knows and reacts the wrong way, everything ends before it even begins." "Then what do we do?" Scarlett asked, forcing the desperation out of her voice. Marco let out a slow breath, as if weighing whether he should reveal something at all. Then he spoke. "I've prepared for something like this. 15 men, all personally selected by me. None of them have ties to Dante's network. 3 snipers, former military, loyal to me, not to the family." Scarlett stared at him, unable to hide her surprise. "How did you know to prepare?" Marco was silent for a moment, his eyes going distant, as if looking back through time. "Don Enzo. Before he died, he called me. He said, 'Watch Dante. There's something wrong with that boy.'" Scarlett felt as if someone had poured ice water down her spine. Luca's father had known. Before he died, he had known. "I've been watching ever since," Marco went on. 3 years. But Dante was too careful. He left no trace. Until now. "So what's the plan?" Scarlett asked, resolve returning to her voice. "You do what Dante asked," Marco said, his tone like he was reading a battle plan. "You bring Luca to Willis Tower. My team will take positions before Dante arrives. 3 snipers on nearby buildings, 12 men inside the tower, covering every entrance and exit. When Dante shows himself and confesses in front of Luca, we cut the lights. In the chaos, priority 1 is getting Sophia out. Priority 2 is taking Dante alive." Scarlett nodded, but she knew there were too many variables. "What about Dante's men?" Marco looked at her without flinching. "I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. Dante has his own team. If anything goes wrong, Sophia dies. Luca dies." Scarlett cut in, her voice steel even as she was breaking inside. Marco watched her for a long moment, then said something she did not expect. "You can leave. Take Sophia. Disappear. I can help you do it. A new identity. A new life. Dante will never find you." Scarlett thought about it. Run. Save Sophia. Leave Luca to his fate. She could do that. She should do that. It was the most sensible choice, but when she closed her eyes, she saw Luca's face. His gray eyes in that garage, the night he threw himself in front of the bullet for her. The kiss in the library, gentle and desperate. His voice when he said, "You're the first person in years to look at me and not see a monster, and let Dante win. Let him kill his own brother." Scarlett opened her eyes and looked straight at Marco. "No, I can't." Marco studied her, something flickering through his gaze, maybe respect. "You truly love him. Is that surprising?" Marco shook his head, a faint smile passing over his mouth. "No, just unexpected." They fell silent for a moment, then Scarlett spoke. "Tomorrow night, 9 in the evening, Willis Tower." Marco nodded. "My team will be in position at 8. But Scarlett." He stopped, and when he continued, his voice was heavy. "If this fails, there's no backup. No second chance. Scarlett knew. God, she knew. The next morning, Scarlett sat at the breakfast table with puffy eyes and a faint tremor in her hands, not entirely acting, because she truly had not slept all night. She avoided looking into Luca's eyes, afraid he would read the truth there. Sophia sat beside Donna Maria, quietly eating breakfast, unaware that a camera was tracking her every movement. Dante sat across from Scarlett, his blue eyes never leaving her for a single second, a friendly smile on his mouth but a gaze cold as ice. "You look exhausted, Reyes," he said, his tone thick with fake concern. "Nightmares," Scarlett answered, her voice weak. Dante nodded in sympathy, but she could see the satisfaction in his eyes. He thought she had been broken. Good. After breakfast, as Scarlett walked down the hallway, Dante came up behind her and blocked her path. No one else was around, and the friendly smile had vanished from his face. "You're playing your part very well," he said, his voice low. "I'm not playing anything," Scarlett replied. Dante stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his breath against her cheek. "Let me make something clear. If I see you talking to Marco longer than necessary, Sophia loses a finger. If I see you write anything, Sophia loses an eye. If I see anything suspicious, Sophia dies. Slowly. Do we understand each other?" Scarlett swallowed, forcing her body to stop shaking. "Yes." Dante smiled and patted her cheek the way someone praised a well-trained dog. "Good girl." Then he walked away, leaving Scarlett alone in the hallway with her heart pounding like a drum. In the afternoon, while Scarlett sat alone in the garden, trying to steady the chaos in her mind, Donna Maria appeared. She sat down beside Scarlett, stayed quiet for a moment, then spoke in a voice that was gentle but firm. "You're leaving tonight." Scarlett turned toward her, struggling to keep her face normal. "I don't know what you mean." Donna Maria smiled, a sad smile full of understanding. "I'm old, but I'm not blind, and I know my sons." She paused, her eyes far away. "Dante has always been different, cold on the inside. Mrs. Moretti." "I know something is happening," Donna Maria cut in. "I don't know the details, and I don't want to. But whatever you're planning, you have my blessing." Scarlett stared at her, not knowing what to say. "But promise me one thing," Donna Maria continued, her aged eyes still sharp as they held Scarlett's. "What?" "Bring Luca home. He is all I have left." Scarlett felt her throat tighten. "I promise." Donna Maria took Scarlett's hand, and Scarlett felt something being pressed into her palm. "I will help you. Tonight, at dinner, I'll keep Dante occupied. Give you time to prepare." And Scarlett, she opened Scarlett's hand, revealing a small knife wrapped in silk. "My husband gave me this, for protection. Now it's yours." At 7 in the evening, Scarlett stood in her room, preparing for what was coming. She wore black jeans, a dark jacket, and boots she could run in. The small gun Marco had given her was hidden at her ankle, Donna Maria's knife tucked into her waistband, and her phone with all the photographs of evidence in her pocket. She stared into the mirror and did not recognize the woman staring back. This was not the bartender from La Stella. This was Agent Reyes. One last time. At 8, a knock sounded at the door. Luca stood there in a black suit, gray eyes on her with absolute trust. "Ready?" "Ready." They looked at each other, and Scarlett saw Luca sense something was wrong. His eyes darkened a shade, his jaw tightening, but he did not ask. Instead, he said something that tore her heart open. "I trust you, more than anyone." The words hit Scarlett like a knife to the chest. She was leading him toward death, and he trusted her more than anyone. They walked out to the car, Luca sitting beside her in the armored Mercedes. As the vehicle rolled away from the estate, Scarlett looked into the rearview mirror. Donna Maria stood at the window, her silhouette framed by the house's warm yellow light. She lifted her hand, a blessing, a farewell, a prayer. "Please let this work," Scarlett whispered. Luca stood as if turned to stone, his gray eyes sweeping the room, from Dante to Victor Russo, from the gunman to Sophia, bound to the chair, and finally stopping on Scarlett. His face moved through a whole storm of emotions in a single heartbeat: shock, disbelief, and then something deeper. A pain so sharp it seemed to hollow him out. "What is this?" he asked, his voice strangled. "Her sister. What the hell is going on?" Then he turned to Scarlett, and the next question tore through her like a blade. "You knew?" Before Scarlett could answer, Dante let out a laugh, cold and echoing in the wide-open space of the observation deck. "Oh, brother, you've always been slow." "Of course she knew. She's the one who brought you here." Luca stared at his brother, his face hard as stone. "Why, Dante? Why?" Dante stepped forward, one hand still tucked into his coat pocket, carrying the easy confidence of a man holding every card. Because you're weak, Luca. You've always been weak. You want to take our family legitimate, build real estate, open clean casinos. He gave a contemptuous snort. Our father had the same sickness. Luca's blood seemed to freeze in his veins. Father? What did you do to him? Dante tilted his head, the smile still on his mouth but his eyes cold as ice. What had to be done? He was about to name you his successor, about to drive our family down the road to ruin called legitimacy. I couldn't let that happen. Luca lunged at Dante, but 2 gunmen moved instantly, blocking him, barrels leveled straight at his head. You killed your own father, Luca roared, his voice shaking with fury and grief. Your own blood. I freed this family, Dante replied, not a flicker of regret in his tone. And Victor, he gestured toward the older man standing like a statue, is my partner. We'll split Chicago. His territory, my territory. Clean and simple. And her? Luca demanded, his eyes cutting to Scarlett. What role does she play in your sick game? Dante turned his gaze to Scarlett, amusement glittering there. Reyes, she's my masterpiece. A former DEA agent with a hero complex. Paralyzing guilt from El Paso. A little sister who needs protecting. He stepped closer to Sophia and stroked her hair, making Scarlett's sister flinch and shrink in fear. I watched her for months, placed her at La Stella, arranged the garage attack so she'd have the chance to save you. All so she could get close to you, make you trust her, love her. Dante looked back at Luca, his smile widening. She was supposed to lead you here. Watch you die, then take the blame for everything. A former DEA agent seduces and murders a Mafia boss. The press will adore that story. I take over the family. Perfect. Luca turned to Scarlett, and what stunned her was the absence of anger in his eyes. There was only understanding. You're trying to save your sister, he said softly. Tears spilled down Scarlett's cheeks. She no longer had the strength to hold them back. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, Luca said. And somehow those 2 simple words carried more meaning than any forgiveness ever could. Victor Russo, who had stayed silent through the entire exchange, finally lost his patience. He stepped forward, his aged face twisting with irritation. Enough of this family theater. Kill them both. 6 gunmen lifted their weapons as one, 6 dark barrels aimed straight at Luca and Scarlett. Scarlett looked around for any escape, but there was none. They were on the 103rd floor, surrounded by enemies, and Marco still had not appeared. This was it. This was how everything ended. She closed her eyes and thought of Sophia, of Luca, of everything she had never gotten to say. 6 guns aimed at their heads. No way out. No Marco. This was it. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the skydeck in an instant, and chaos erupted. Screams rang out, feet hammered in every direction, and Scarlett rolled hard to the side. Survival instincts forged in the DEA, firing before thought could catch up. The tiny earpiece Marco had slipped her that afternoon crackled to life with static. We're blocked. Marco's voice came through, tight with strain, gunfire popping behind him. Dante has reinforcements on the 100th floor. How long? Scarlett whispered, her heart pounding like a drum. 3 minutes, maybe more. You're on your own. 3 minutes, 180 seconds. Too long. In the pitch black, Scarlett realized a brutal problem. The gun she had hidden at her ankle had been taken when they passed the metal detector in the lobby. All she had left was Donna Maria's knife at her waist. Gunshots cracked blindly in the dark as Dante's men fired at shadows, trying to hit targets they could not see. Scarlett crawled across the glass floor, toward where she had last seen Sophia sitting. Her hand found the chair leg, then the rough bite of rope. Sophia, she whispered. It's me. Don't move. She pulled the knife free and cut fast through the cords binding her sister. And then, something miraculous happened. For the first time in months, Sophia spoke. Scarlett. Her sister's voice trembled, thin and shaken, but it was a voice, a sound, something Scarlett had begun to believe she would never hear again. Get down and don't move, Scarlett ordered, shoving Sophia flat to the floor just as a beam of light snapped on in the middle of the room. Dante stood there, a flashlight in one hand, a gun in the other, the smile still on his mouth, though his face was ice now. Well done, Reyes, but I always have a backup plan. He swept the flashlight across the room and aimed the gun straight at Sophia sprawled on the floor. Come out, or she dies. Scarlett started to rise, unable to let Sophia be shot, but before she could move, a dark shape slammed into Dante from the side. Luca. The brothers crashed together, the gun flying from Dante's grip and skidding across the glass floor. The flashlight fell and rolled away, throwing crazed streaks of light as the two men grappled on the ground. Luca's fist drove into Dante's face. Dante answered with a knee to Luca's gut. They rolled and twisted, each trying to gain the advantage. Right then, the emergency door blew open with a violent bang. Marco stormed in, 8 men behind him, less than half of the 15 he had started with. His face was smeared with blood, his shirt torn, but his eyes were still sharp as blades. They had lost 7 men on the lower floors, but they had come anyway. A firefight exploded instantly, Marco's team colliding with Dante's gunmen in a blur of gunshots and screams. Glass shattered, cold wind and snow pouring in from outside, and Scarlett crawled to shield Sofia from the wild bullets whipping through the air. Victor Russo tried to run for the elevator, his aged face twisted with fear, but Marco cut him off. The fight was short. Marco was faster, even wounded, and one punch to the jaw was enough to drop the Russo boss to the floor. "Stay down, old man," Marco snarled, one hand pressing hard against his bleeding shoulder. But in the chaos, Scarlett saw something that turned her blood to ice. Dante had slipped free of Luca, and he was moving toward the door to the roof in the corner of the room. "Luca, Dante is running," Scarlett shouted. Luca turned just in time to see his brother vanish through the door. Without hesitation, he chased after him. Scarlett grabbed a gun off the floor and ran after them, her heart pounding like it might burst. Somewhere behind her, Marco was bleeding. Somewhere behind her, Sofia was crying. But this had to end. Tonight, the roof of Willis Tower was an icy hell. Snow fell thick and fast. The wind shrieked like a demon's howl, and Chicago stretched 1,300 feet below, a glittering sea of lights, indifferent to the tragedy unfolding high above. Dante stood at the edge of the roof, a gun in his hand, his face twisted with rage and madness. Facing him was Luca, gun in hand as well, blood from the old shoulder wound seeping through his black suit. "You were always the loved one," Dante screamed over the wind. "Father loved you. Mother was proud of you. And I was just the shadow. Always the shadow. I'll give you anything," Luca said, his voice trembling not from the cold. "I don't want anything from you," Dante shouted, his eyes bloodshot. "I want what belongs to me. Power. Respect. Everything that should have been mine. You killed Father for power? I freed this family." Dante tightened his grip on the gun. "Father was weak, like you. He wanted to go legitimate, build something clean. But we weren't born to be clean, Luca. We were born to rule." He pulled the trigger. The bullet ripped through the air and slammed into Luca's left shoulder, the exact place of the old wound from the night in the garage. Luca cried out in pain, stumbling back, but he kept his footing. He lifted his gun, aimed at Dante, but when his finger touched the trigger, he hesitated. The shot went wide, deliberately, slicing past Dante's ear by only inches. "Still can't kill your own brother?" Dante laughed. "Wild." "Yes." Luca lowered his gun, his voice suddenly calm. "I can't. But not because I'm weak. Because killing you would make me you. And I would rather die than become that. Then die." Dante squeezed the trigger. Click. The gun jammed. Panic warped his face. He hurled the useless weapon away and yanked a knife from his coat, charging Luca with a feral snarl. The brothers crashed together on the slick, snow-covered roof. Dante stabbed downward. Luca blocked. They rolled and fought, each trying to gain the advantage. Dante nearly drove the blade into Luca's throat, the edge hovering only centimeters from the artery. Then a gunshot cracked. Dante screamed. The knife flew from his hand, and he collapsed into the snow, blood pouring from his shoulder. Scarlett stood a few yards away, the gun in her hand still smoking, her amber eyes cold as ice. "He'll never stop, Luca." Luca rose, picked up Dante's gun, and stepped over his brother as he lay groaning in the snow. "Do it," Dante taunted, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. "Prove you're strong." Luca looked down at him, the brother who had killed their father, betrayed their family, nearly killed him and everyone he loved. His fingers tightened around the grip. Then he lowered the gun. "Strength isn't killing your own blood," he said. "Strength is not becoming you." The roar of a helicopter tore the sky. But this was not an FBI helicopter. A black helicopter bearing the Moretti crest set down on the roof, and Donna Maria stepped out with 2 bodyguards beside her, silver hair whipping in the wind. "I couldn't stay home and wait," she said, her voice trembling, her eyes unshaken. She walked to where Dante lay and looked down at her youngest son with an expression that could not be read. "Mother," Dante groaned, reaching for her. "Help me." Donna Maria looked down at her son, and when she spoke, her voice was ice. "I know. I always knew. When you were 8, I found you torturing a cat. I prayed I was wrong. Tears began to slide down her cheeks, but her voice did not shake. When your father died, I saw your eyes. Not grief. Relief. I've watched you since then, hoping, praying. You are my son, my baby, and you became a monster. She turned away, not looking back. Take him. The FBI helicopter appeared moments later. Marco had called it in earlier. Dante was cuffed and lifted onto a stretcher, but before they carried him away, he looked back at Luca with eyes full of hatred. This isn't over. It's over, Luca said, and for the first time, his voice held no pain, only release. Scarlett looked around and saw the wreckage. Marco had a shoulder wound and was being bandaged by one of the survivors. 7 of his 15 men were dead on the lower floors. 3 of Dante's assassins were dead. 3 were under arrest. Victor Russo was badly injured and was being strapped into a stretcher in cuffs. And Sofia, her sister, was curled under a blanket someone had wrapped around her, eyes wide, stunned, but safe, alive. The helicopter carrying Dante lifted into the snowy sky, and Donna Maria stood between her 2 sons, one a prisoner, one covered in blood. It's over, Luca said. Scarlett took his hand. No, she answered. It's only beginning. 2 years later, morning sunlight poured through the glass walls of the Moretti Reyes Community Center, a brand new building rising in the middle of a neighborhood that had once been a blood-soaked battleground for Chicago's Mafia families. Inside, Scarlett stood before a group of 15 women, all in workout clothes, their eyes locked on every movement she demonstrated. Remember, the goal isn't to win, she said, her voice clear and confident. The goal is to get out, survive, make it home to your family. The trainees nodded, repeating the basic self-defense sequence she had just taught, and Scarlett smiled as she watched their progress. She was no longer the bartender at La Stella, and no longer the DEA agent carrying guilt like a second skin. She had found a new purpose, giving other women the ability to protect themselves. From the doorway and back, Luca Moretti stood watching his wife with a look full of love. He had changed so much in 2 years, the scar on his shoulder healed, the expensive suit replaced by an everyday shirt, the weight of a mafia boss set down in order to become a legitimate businessman. The Moretti family now operated entirely within the law, real estate, hotels, and community centers like this one, just as Don Enzo's old wish had been. Dante was serving a sentence of 30 years in federal prison, with no possibility of pardon, living out his lonely days despised by other inmates for the betrayal of his own family. Victor Russo had died in prison after 6 months, age and grievous wounds giving him no chance to live longer. Marco Chen, who had lost 7 teammates on that fateful night at Willis Tower, was now the chief executive of a legitimate security company, the wound on his shoulder healed and his loyalty to the Moretti family unchanged. But perhaps the most miraculous change belonged to Sofia. The girl who had been silent for years was now in her 2nd year of college, majoring in psychology, talking and laughing like any ordinary young woman, and she even had her first boyfriend, a medical student Luca had interviewed so thoroughly that Marco had to step in and stop him. Donna Maria still lived at the Moretti estate, but now her laughter filled the halls every day as she cared for her granddaughter, Elena Maria Moretti, 8 months old, the daughter of Luca and Scarlett, with her father's gray eyes and her mother's olive skin. After class ended, Luca walked up behind Scarlett and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. "You teach so well," he whispered against her ear. "I'm just sharing what I know," she replied, turning to kiss him softly. They stepped outside into the courtyard, where the Chicago sun felt warm and the sky was a clean blue without a single cloud. Luca looked at his wife, the woman who had changed his life, and asked the question he had wanted to ask for a long time. "Do you ever regret it? Walking into that garage?" Scarlett looked at him, her amber eyes bright in the sunlight. "Every day. I'm grateful I did. Even the bullets, the betrayal, especially those things. Because they led me to you." They stood there, hand in hand, looking toward the Chicago skyline, a city that had once been a battlefield and was now their home. Some wounds never fully heal, but with the right person beside you, they become scars, proof that you survived, proof that love is worth fighting for. Their story did not begin like a fairy tale. It began with a gunshot in a parking garage, and that made it more real than anything else. This story brings us profound lessons about life. First, family is not blood. It is the people willing to sacrifice for you and never betray you. Second, the past does not define you. Mistakes and guilt from the past can be redeemed by the right actions in the present. Third, true love demands trust and sacrifice, but the reward is worth every hardship. And finally, Real strength is not found in violence, but in restraint, forgiveness, and refusing to become what you hate. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the story. Italian Mafia Lovers has many more intense love stories waiting for you. How do you feel about this story? Did you empathize with Scarlett when she had to make impossible choices? Or did you understand Luca's pain when he was betrayed by his own brother? In our real lives, we also face betrayal, hard decisions, and the question of what family truly means. Share your feelings in the comments below. We want to hear the thoughts from deep in your hearts. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel, hit like, and share this video, so we have more motivation to bring you compelling stories every day. Wishing everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness beside the people you love. Goodbye, and see you again in the next video.